Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining today and welcome back to the Bulletin podcast. I'm your host, Charina Garcia, and I'm here with WR Director of Visa Consulting, Charlie Oppenheim, to recap the July Visa Bulletin and talk about what it means for the HR, immigration, and global mobility folks listening on our Spotify or watching us on YouTube today. Some housekeeping items before we dive in today. We'd love to hear any feedback or suggestions the listeners have on our podcast. So please share that in the comments or reach out to us directly. We also hope that you consider following us on Spotify or subscribing on our WI Immigration on YouTube. Okay, let's dive into the July Visa Bulletin. All right, Charlie, what are the big changes in employment-based categories for the July Visa Bulletin this month?
The major changes we've seen are on rest of world employment second preference. Although it was announced in the June Visa Bulletin that date was going to retrogress, the rest of world employment second date actually advanced by over 2 months. The employment third preference, as predicted in the June Visa Bulletin, did retrogress. The rest of world third preference retrogressed to December 1st of 2021. That should be assumed to be a line in the sand so that they will not use any more numbers. But the July Visa Bulletin also announced that it is possible that the rest of world third preference date may retrogress once again or become unavailable in August.
Okay, so are we saying, though, for EB1 India, you think it's going to stay the same at February 1, 2022?
I think that there is a good chance the India employment first preference date did advance almost a full year to February 1st of 2022. I think there is a good chance that date will advance again either in August and or September. The rapid advance indicates that the State Department has determined that there will be otherwise unused employment first preference numbers under the overall worldwide limit, and those numbers are then made available in priority date order, with Indians having the earliest employment first preference dates.
So EB1, rest of world, will remain current, and the overflow is going towards the India folks who have the older priority dates, correct?
Correct. And this is a tremendous advantage to the Indian employment first preference applicants.
Okay, so do we think so for EB2, because there is a cutoff for rest of the world of March 15, 2023, and then for India, it's June 15, 2012, and then for China, it's March 1, 2020, we don't think any extra numbers will overflow to that category, correct?
No, correct. As long as there is an employment second or third preference date for rest of world, no numbers fall across for potential use by Indian or Chinese applicants in the second and third preference categories. So India and China employment second and third are subject strictly to their per country limit.
Okay, and then for EB3, rest of world, we saw it go backwards, right? So it went from November 22nd, 22 to December 1, 2021. So in that situation, are you predicting further retrogression, or you think it'll hold there for the August Visa Bulletin?
If I had been retrogressing the date for July, I would have retrogressed it to a point where it would not have to be retrogressed again. But in the July Visa Bulletin, it was indicated that there may be another retrogression, or the category could become unavailable in August or September. So we cannot rule out further changes in the rest of world third preference date.
Okay, but then EB2, you said, was a pleasant surprise, right, for rest of world, where we thought it was going to retrogress, but it actually moved up.
Correct. It was a pleasant surprise, but again, it calls into question the data which is being provided to the State Department, where they could 1 month think that there was going to have to be a retrogression in the date to hold number use within the annual limit, and then a month later, they advanced the date by 2 months in order to maximize number use. So again, it's a little bit disconcerting what's happened with that second preference date.
So do you think it'll move again next month in August?
For the employment second preference applicants' sake, I hope that it does. I would not guarantee that, though.
Okay. And then in terms of HR and global mobility folks, I think you're going to have some very happy employees because now they can file their EB2 rest of the world, especially our national interest waiver folks, because it was just holding steady there for a bit, but then it moved up a couple months. So I think you're going to see a lot more people asking if they could file under the EB2 national interest waiver, especially if you already have an EB3 perm for them. They'll want to try and get upgraded because of the EB3 retrogression. What you normally see is employees start worrying because they see it go back almost a year. And then they start asking about sponsorship under the other categories, because as Charlie has mentioned in the past, you could be sponsored in multiple categories as long as you meet the requirements, right, Charlie?
Yes.
And then that's where people start moving and changing lanes. So if they were in the EB3 lane, they asked to move to the EB2 lane. And then because we see India moving again, so the last time India moved was in July of 2023 was when it was at February 1, 2022 as well. So a year later, it's moved back to February 1, 2022. So what's going to happen is that those folks who filed back in July of 2023, their applications or their adjustment applications are now going to be adjudicated by the USCIS. So basically, those applications have been sitting for about a year. And then now the USCIS can actually pull those files and adjudicate them because for the month of July, there is visa availability. And like Charlie says, if it stays open until the end of the fiscal year, which is September 30th, then the USCIS hopefully can get through all those February 1, 2022 priority date applicants. And then hopefully in October, right, Charlie, we can see some movement again.
Yeah, and in one good thing, in theory, any of those applicants who filed back in July of last year, the Immigration Service should have been working on their case to pre-adjudicate them so that come July 1st, they could be finalized, with the only updating possibly being required on any time-sensitive documentation, which may have expired in the interim. But otherwise, their cases, the State Department would have provided numbers for use effective July 1st.
Okay, now let's talk about family-based and what did we see there? So if we're looking at the family-based, what did we see, Charlie, in the July visa bulletin for family-based?
Family-based was first, 2B, and third and fourth preference, all advanced, significant advancements. I think that is a very positive sign that the State Department is attempting to maximize number use, and there really should be no reason that these dates should not continue to advance. Again, in State Department's attempt to maximize number use so that the 226,000 annual limit can be realized.
But we didn't see any movement again in F2A. So again, what's happening there, Charlie?
There was tremendous movement in the F2A date between January and June. So the date held for July. So again, the rapid movement in the preceding 6 months, they're probably waiting to see a little bit what that is going to do in terms of number use. But you cannot rule out advancement of the 2A date in August or September.
So we could see some movement, you're hoping?
I think you could expect some 2A movement in August or September.
Okay. Charlie, any other final thoughts you want to share?
The fact that some of these dates have advanced very rapidly or retrogressed is an important note to people that they should file as quickly as possible when a visa is available so that it can be processed. You never know if there might be a retrogression or after a period of time when the visa wasn't available, that it doesn't suddenly, as in the case of India, first preference, where suddenly it advances dramatically.
Okay. Well, thanks, Charlie, for the bulletin recap. And tune in next month for our next bulletin recap. Thank you.